The sun shone through the small window of his basement window and slowly crept along the floor till it reached Blue Ink as he sat at the edge of his bed. Nobody sat his suitcases, pillows, and a blanket as he was going away on a small trip back to his old hometown. Some big events were rolling on, and he wanted to go to them. However, he was not going alone. He lifted his head up and looked to a picture he had on the wall of his room. It showed him taking the picture, and standing next to him was his girlfriend of 2 amazing years, Sunset Shimmer. Once upon a time, he had become friends with her after her defeat at the fall formal. He was actually the first to accept her as he felt she could change her ways. They used to hang out whenever she wasn't with her friends, or saving the world from crazy magic. He had always liked her, and wanted to be with her forever, but at the time, he felt he was nowhere near her standards, so he turned her down and went with another girl. It was the greatest pair of mistakes he ever made. The girl wasn't very nice, and while they got married and had 3 kids, she was rude to him and revealed he was using him to make another man jealous. This resulted in a nasty divorce. Sunset came to help him after that, and 1 year later they became a couple. Now sitting on his bed, he looked down to a small blue box. Inside it was an object he was sure would change his, as well as Sunset's lives, forever. He wasn't sure if she would say yes, but given how she had agreed to help him, be his girlfriend even after being turned down years before, and even move in with him, maybe she would say yes.
I hope so.
Blue, are you ready, or are you going to stand there all day?
He chuckled as he put the box back into his pocket.
Hang on there, baby. I'm coming.
He got up from his bed, grabbed his things, and walked out of his room. The journey wasn't without its faults. At one point, the tire went flat and they spent 20 minutes changing it, then they took a different route, adding more than 40 minutes to their time, and by the time they got close to their hotel, Sunset's GPS signal went out. Nevertheless, they drove on and soon reached the hotel where Blue Ink got out, feeling annoyed.
Fine time for all that to happen.
Sorry about that. I didn't know our GPS signal could go out.
Sunset, I don't blame you. It was me going the wrong way. If we hadn't, I would have known where we were going. I mean, sure, I haven't been down here in for years, but I still know my way around, at least through the original route. So point being, I'm to blame.
Don't you dare blame yourself, dork. Getting lost can happen to anyone. Do you know how many trips I would have missed out on if I started blaming Rainbow Dash, Twilight Sparkle, or Pinkie Pie for getting lost? Many of them, that's what. And I wouldn't be with you, so remember that next time.
Okay, baby, point made. We're here, and that's all that matters.
Let's get our room relaxed and go out to dinner.
With a happy nod, Blue Ink followed his love into the hotel. Once more, Blue Ink found himself sitting on the edge of the bed, this time waiting as Sunset changed into a fancy dress for their dinner date. He was already in a fancy suit, which Sunset had to admit was odd but accepted it. In the end, he reached into his pocket once more and pulled out the blue box.
It's a big step. I swore I'd never let my heart get broken again. Then again, Sunset isn't like her, so this time should be different. That, and she was my first crush who wanted to be with me to begin with.
He sighed happily as he put the box back into his pocket and stood up and walked over to the window. It was a different view from his old life, but it still felt right, hence why he had waited to come back to his old hometown to ask the all-important question. The door opened, he turned around and found Sunset walking out, all the while wearing a pink dress with shoulder straps that allowed her shoulders to be shown. And at the bottom of her dress were like pink flames. Instead of her normal shoes or boots, Sunset was wearing simple red shoes. Nothing fancy cause it wasn't her style, but they still looked good on her feet. Unlike most girls, Sunset did not wear makeup unless she was asked by Rarity, or for some special occasion.
I'm all ready,
she said, doing a little spin.
Where are we going anyways?
We're heading off to an all-you-can-eat restaurant I used to go to all the time. It always had good pasta, especially the spicy kind.
Hee, maybe it's a good thing it's just you and me then, because if Rainbow was with us, she'd freak out over the spicy food.
Blue had to laugh. It reminded him of a time back in Canterlot High when he was hanging out with Sunset and the girls. Rainbow Dash had been tricked into eating a spicy sandwich. It resulted in one of the most funny scenes ever with her trying to get the heat out of her mouth.
Will you be okay with spicy food, Sonny?
Oh yeah, I'll be fine. This is me you're talking about, remember? I can handle the heat. Now come on, let's get going.
As she turned to leave, she swayed her hips a bit before grabbing her purse. She stopped at the door and looked over her shoulder.
Come on, Casanova! Let's get going!
Oh yeah, right! Coming!
And with that, he followed behind while Sunset rolled her eyes. They arrived at the restaurant early, long before the big crowds came in. The restaurant had normal tables with chairs, but there were also booths as it once was owned by a different restaurant long before. When the current owners arrived, they decided to keep the booths for busy days. They were led to one of these booths, and after getting their drink orders, Sunset turned to Blue Ink.
So, do you want to go up first, or are you okay with waiting for me?
Blue Ink didn't answer, he just kept thinking.
Hello? Blue, are you still in there?
Still she got no answer. She lifted up her right hand and gave him a boop on the nose. That did the trick.
Are you distracted by my beauty tonight?
No, maybe a little.
Oh, you old charmer, you. But seriously, what's going on with you? You've hardly said a word since we left the hotel. Did I do something to upset you?
Sunset, you're you. Nothing you do or ever did will upset me.
Sunset smirked before the serious look came back to her face.
Then what's going on?
Brewing took in a deep breath and finally spoke.
Sunset, do you know what today is?
Sunset shrugged her shoulders, so Brewing answered the question for her.
It's 3 years ago today that my ex-wife divorced me and took the kids with her.
Oh, I forgot about that. I'm sorry. Of course, today would be a bad day for you. So if you want to be sad, then you have every right to.
While I am sad about losing my kids, that's not why I've been quiet this whole time, Sunset. You see, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about us.
What about us?
Well, I've been thinking about how lucky it is that instead of coming around, pointing your finger in my face and insult me for picking the wrong girl, you open up your arms and heart to me. And how ever since, we've gotten closer than we did back in high school.
Oh, I was just trying to help, that's all.
You've done more than help. You've changed my life for the better, made me feel that life is worth living, and above all else, you've shown that it is possible to love again.
Sunset's blush grew darker.
Oh, I didn't do that much.
You have, and you still do, even with you teasing me every now and again. I love you, Sunset Shimmer, and I don't want to be away from you ever, that's why.
He paused as he stepped out of the booth. Sunset stepped out too, but she wasn't sure why. She'd be glad she did.
I've decided it's time to try again, but this time, with the right girl.
He got down on his right knee and reached into his pocket, pulling out the small blue box. Sunset's hand went to her mouth, while tears began to flow down from her eyes. Bluing opened up the box, while little sobs could be heard coming from Sunset. Inside the box was a simple gold ring with a little white diamond on the top. It wasn't fancy, but it was still perfect. Just like Sunset, he took in a few deep breaths and said the words.
Sunset Shimmer, will you marry me?
Nodding her head happily, Sunset gave a happy.
Yes, of course, I'll marry you.
And with that, she fell to her knees and embraced Brewing in a hug. He hugged her back before to share a kiss. It was a short one as they were already creating a scene in the restaurant, but nobody seemed to care. Some were even cheering for the young couple. Brewing smiled as he pulled the ring out of the box and placed it on Sunset's finger. It seemed to shine even brighter than it had in the box.
Now let's both go and get some food. I'm starving.
Hey, right behind you, babe.
Smiled Sunset as she followed her soon-to-be husband to the buffet. Some time later, with their stomachs full, they returned back to the hotel. Before Sunset could even take the first step on the stairs, Brewing swept her off her feet and started carrying her in his arms.
Blue, you know I can walk, right?
I know, but I want to do this for you, my love.
Sunset smiled and embraced Blue as they made their way upstairs to their room.
I have to say, I've never seen you be this romantic before. I love it.
It wasn't long before they reached their room. It was difficult to get the card out, all the while holding Sunset in his arms, but once he got the card into the security slot, the rest was easy. They went into the room where Sunset began to kick off her shoes. She looked into Brewing's eyes. He stared into her eyes and then, well, let's just say that night was the best night of both their lives.